Hey, this is Mike Sinisi, executive editor for Make Magazine, and we are here with Brendan Schulman, the drone lawyer who just won the first ever case against civilian drone flight. Federal court threw out the case against Trappy Parker. So tell me, how did this come about?
Well, how did the fine come about, or the
whole
case?
thing.
Oh, okay. Well, so Trappy, Raphael Parker, is probably one of the best-known radio control model pilots who takes videos in the world, and he was flying at the University of Virginia in connection with a potential commercial that they wanted to make about their medical center. And the FAA somehow noticed the flight, maybe saw the video online, and objected to the manner in which he was flying, and also said this is a commercial flight. Therefore making his operation a UAS operation subject to regulation. So they pursued a penalty against him, and as of last week, a judge at the NTSB has said there are no regulations concerning model aircraft or drone flight.
And so this was the first ever of its type where they'd been pursued by the FAA, a flyer of an unmanned aircraft had been pursued by the FAA. Is that correct?
This is the first attempt to penalize someone for flying a commercial UAS that I'm aware of. There certainly have been years of cease and desist letters in which people have been instructed not to operate for business purposes, but this is the first time that I'm aware of that they've ever attempted to enforce any regulation or policy.
And so the fine was put forth in October, if I'm not mistaken. So it's been a number of months that this has been underway. Thrown out last week, which is incredible. Congratulations again. Is that normal, that length of time for a process like this?
Yeah, it's typical of litigation that you have a series of written briefs that are filed. That took a number of months. The motion was submitted to the judge by the end of December, and so it took about 2 or 2.5 months to get a decision, which really is actually pretty much normal, or actually pretty fast in terms of the way, deciding a novel issue of law that no one else has ever considered before.
And now that this has been thrown out, it sort of opens the doors for people to be able to fly more freely. What happens with civilian flyers that want to do more stuff with their planes?
Well, first of all, the decision I've heard is being appealed, so it's important to note that I'm not providing legal advice to any of your viewers or readers about what they should or shouldn't do. I think to the extent that there's someone who thinks that the decision has an impact on what they want to do, either as a business or individually, they really do need to consult with their own attorney.
Okay. For the entire application of drone flight, I mean, this is something that we're really just at some of the first steps of what this is turning into. How do you envision the future? Just from on the interest side, like, where do you see this heading? Aside from restrictions, legislation, regulation, application-wise, how do you imagine this developing and growing?
It's really incredible. The number of people who've contacted me over the past few months to tell me about projects they're working on and potential applications for the technology. To me, it's like being at the dawn of the internet in the mid-90s. Not the dawn of the internet, but the dawn of the commercialization of the internet. When you had all these potential ideas that were going to change the world in ways that we really couldn't imagine back then. And we're really at that moment in terms of drones or unmanned aircraft systems, particularly the small models that can be operated low to the ground and do things like cinematography or infrastructure inspection or search and rescue. Agriculture is supposed to be the #1 use in the future. I mean, these are all industries that are going to change the way they do things as a result of this technology, and I think for the better, not just in terms of economics, but also in terms of safety. If you can inspect power lines or cell phone towers without putting people up on the tower who could fall off and get killed, I think that's a net benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. What type of restrictions are there internationally? Do you know, outside of the U.S., what are people allowed to do in other countries, other parts of the world?
There's a range of approaches in other countries. Some countries have expressly permitted commercial operation of drones, including Australia, Japan, Canada, the United Kingdom. Those legal frameworks tend to turn on the weight of the drone that you want to fly and how high you want to fly it off the ground. But there is a way forward in those countries, unlike here, according to the FAA, where it's been banned since 2007. There are other countries who have taken a strict approach and have prohibited commercial operations for now, similar to what the FAA's position is here.
What is it about drone flight that the FAA is so intent on pursuing? What with Rafael, and I think you mentioned it earlier in the day that there were 17 other letters that you'd heard about people being served. Why is there such an interest from the FAA on looking into this?
I think back in 2007 or even before then, the FAA considered all of these systems to be aircraft. They were mostly used overseas in the wars to kill people or to surveil the battlefield. And I think there was an expectation or understanding at the time that this technology would be useful in the United States for law enforcement purposes, for border patrol, for surveillance, things that were governmental in nature, high altitude, large systems, and they weren't thinking at all about these quadcopters and other 5-pound foam models like the one that Rafael was flying in Virginia, and how those would be used. So when they took the approach of saying, we're going to ban this activity until we have rules in place, I think it was with that in mind. Nobody wants any of these devices flying in the path of manned aircraft. I mean, that's clear. That's not the point of the decision. I certainly don't think the decision is a license to go out and fly wherever you want irresponsibly. But I think in 2007, there was a misunderstanding, or at least a different understanding about what this technology was and what it could do. And now we're in a very different place technologically, and we still don't have the rules in place. So it's been 7 years of not having any rules in place and a policy-based ban. And I think it really stems from that early misconception about what this technology was going to be.
It's interesting. So we're now at a point where there's been one official ruling. We can start building up and determining sort of an additive process of what type of regulation will be beneficial to everyone, rather than starting with no one can do anything and we chip away from that. It seems like that's maybe a better model for the large community that really wants to get involved with these things.
Yeah, I think one of the main points of the decision is, if you read it, it's hard to read. It's a lot of legalese, but it's not a legal technicality, right? The point of having a notice and comment rulemaking process is really it's a function of our democracy. We have federal agencies that are authorized to create rules and regulations that can be binding on the public. But before they do that, they're required under the Administrative Procedures Act, this is the statute that governs this process, to consult with the public, to provide notice and an opportunity for members of the public, corporations that might be affected by the proposed rule, to have input so they can go down and testify in front of the agency. They can send in written comments and say, this proposed regulation is going to have negative consequences on safety, on the economics, on the jobs that we employ in the field. And so I think that opportunity to comment has been completely lacking since 2007, because at that point in time, the FAA simply said this is banned and foreclosed the possibility of developing a real industry. Now I think there is that opportunity for the public to get involved, for constituencies to say, we're here, we have an interest in what the regulation looks like, and to use the notice and comment process to be heard.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how things move forward, and I'm excited that we're in the spot we are now, and appreciate your hard work. So yeah, obviously keep us filled in as things move forward, and for those of you guys who are flyers out there, remember, fly safely, fly responsibly, and if you get in trouble, contact your lawyer.
Don't get into trouble.
But yeah, first and foremost, don't get in trouble.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Brendan.